Hi, my name's Troy Jacobson and welcome to On the Road Volume 5, Louisville, Kentucky Training Ride. Today we're going to preview the Iron Distance course in Louisville, Kentucky, and with me today are riders Carrie, Courtney, and Dale Benedict of the Training Studio and Snow Angel Fitness. Now this is going to be a tough and long aerobic ride. We're going to cover roughly 60 miles of the course and give you a good idea of what it's all about. It's a rolling hilly course, so you need to make sure that you're ready to ride. Make sure you have plenty of fluids, plenty of calories with you, and you're up for a solid aerobic workout. All right, so let's ride.
Okay, we're heading out of town now, just as if you were getting out of the swim and you went through a quick transition from the 2.4 mile swim and you're out on the bike. This road right here is pretty flat and level, so we're just going to be warming up here for the purpose of this training ride. So you're going to be on your small chain ring on the front and around your 15 or so on the back. And if you're on a spinner bike, let's keep that resistance at a level of 1 or 2. Stop light here, so we're just going to go through that stoplight, make sure no cars are coming. And here's a helmet cam preview, Dale's helmet cam. And this is the car cam. The car following us with the camera, showing that perspective as if you're on Dale's wheel right now. Some of this road's kind of rough, by the way, as you head out of town onto the main road out onto the course. So be prepared for that if you're doing this race. Some potholes, watch out for the potholes. Make sure your tire pressure is up to about 110, 120 psi so you don't get any pinch flats. And right now, again, you should be in your small chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and just pedaling at a cadence probably between 80 and 90 RPMs, just getting yourself warmed up because we do have a long ride today. It's a hot day. We videotaped this in 2008. And it was a hot day when we videotaped this training ride. And of course, if you're doing the race, you can anticipate hot and very humid conditions. So we're going to talk a little bit about hydration and nutrition during this workout. But right now, we're just warming up. Small chain ring 15. Spinner bike on about a 1 or 2. On that scale from 1 to 5, 5 being a real high resistance level. Now keep in mind that for this video and for all of our spinnerbles and other cycling workouts, you can choose a voice only or a voice plus music track. So if you don't like our music, you can always use your own music. And if you don't like my voice, you can just turn the volume down. It's okay, it won't hurt my feelings. Riding along, getting warmed up. You can see that Dale has a couple water bottles set up on his bike. One with water, the other probably with a sports drink. Because we're heading out on a ride today of over 3 hours. Now we're going to be doing one loop of this course. One loop. It's kind of like a lollipop course, and if you go to the race website, you'll be able to see exactly what we mean, as well as get a better sense of what these different roads are called. But we're just in that first mile or 2 of the course here, heading out of town. Keeping that cadence up, 80 to 90 RPMs and low resistance right now. It's not bad right here because we do have 2 lanes and the road's not horribly beat up. So that's kind of nice, but get ready because we will be heading out and you'll see that we go to a 1 lane and fairly busy traffic. So if you're out on the course training the week before the race or out at a training camp or something to that effect, make sure that you're very careful in this section coming up, because it does get busy during the week and on weekends. We do host a training camp for this particular race each year. It's about 4 to 6 weeks from race day, and we preview the course, actually ride the entire course, as well as run the run course, and give all of our campers a great preview of the course, and talk a lot about long-distance triathlon training and racing technique. Helmet cam point of view. Of course, we're out here on this training ride, so we're drafting a little bit. Can't do that on race day. Fast section of the course. You have to be careful you don't take it out too fast. It'll really come back at you at the end of the race. So you always use this as a warm-up. Nice and easy, nice and steady. Like I said, we're just looking at warming up right now, so nothing too intense. And actually, that's a great strategy for race day as well. You know, one of the common mistakes a lot of triathletes make at the iron distance is they go out too hard and they do what cyclists call burn their matches. So basically, they go out too hard, they're caught up in the excitement and energy of the race early on, and they burn through their matches, taking their heart rate up to anaerobic threshold or even higher. And every time you do that, you burn a match, and you only have so many matches to burn during the course of a race. And in any event that lasts well over 9 hours for most people and up to 17 hours for some, you can't burn your matches. You've got to conserve those matches for the entire race, and keep in mind that for many people, the race doesn't really even start until mile 80 or so on the bike, because they still have a marathon to run. So conservation is critical. You have to allocate your energy over the course of the event, and keep in mind as well that the race is usually won or lost on the run. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to athletes over my years coaching iron distance athletes, as well as being one myself, when people say, gosh, you know, I was running so well up until mile 20, and then the wheels fell off, and I ended up walking the last 6 miles, which, added another hour to their anticipated finish time. Yeah, well, no kidding. That happens to a lot of people. So don't let that happen to you. Try to manage your energy output so it doesn't happen. That means being conservative at the front end, making sure you're focused on your fluid intake and your calorie intake, and just trying to be smart about your race strategy. That's what iron distance racing is all about. So here we are on this one-lane road. Again, it's a little bit narrow and a little bit more dangerous here. So be visible to the cars. Make sure that you're about a foot or two off the white line so the cars can see you, but also be mindful of cars coming both ways. So keep your cadence up. We're going around 80 to 90 RPMs right now, so just warming up. You can see here it's a nice sunny day in Louisville, Kentucky. But again, it's going to be a hot one, so make sure you're fully hydrated. And if you're doing this workout on your trainer at home, make sure you have plenty of fluids with you, and try to simulate perhaps the effort that you'll do on race day, and simulate your nutrition and your hydration strategy, so that when it does come to race day, you have a great idea of what your needs are. In particular, sweat rate, and I can't tell you how important that is to determine your sweat rate, to learn through experimentation how much you actually sweat each hour at a certain power output and or a certain heart rate. Keep in mind, of course, temperature is important there too. That's an important part of the equation. So some athletes will actually try to simulate race condition, whether it's outside or indoors. So if you know it's going to be 85 degrees at 50% humidity on race day, which is very possible, try to simulate that in a training ride at a certain power output and figure out how much fluid you lose in that hour. Some people are heavy sweaters, and if so, that's actually a disadvantage for those who do iron distance racing. People who are heavy sweaters have a difficult time, especially on real hot days. So you've got to account for that. Make sure you take in plenty of fluids. Keep in mind as well that there's no such thing as a 1-to-1 replenishment ratio. In other words, if you sweat out 1.5 liters of fluid, it's difficult for your body to absorb 1.5 liters per hour in terms of your consumption. So you've got to balance it. You've got to balance it, and that's why conservation is so important when it comes to these really long ultra-distance events. Just warming up here, small chain ring 15, keeping it steady, watching out for the cars. Pretty level stretch of road, so nothing really exciting. If you are riding your tri-bike right now in your trainer, practice being in your aero bars, because this is definitely a section where you want to be aerodynamic. The more aerodynamic you are, the less energy you'll use for a given speed. So keep that in mind. If you're using a power meter, which I do recommend that you do, you want to try to go at your maximum speed at any given power output, to keep that power output as low as possible. Here's another helmet cam from the front, looking at the road up ahead. Ride nice and steady. Again, this is a level stretch of road. Pretty uneventful. Pretty straight, too. And the temptation on race day is to hammer this section. Just don't do it. Just say no. Keep it steady. Keep it under control. Keep your cadence up. Right now for this workout, we're just warming up. And by the way, now's the time to start drinking. Now's the time to start thinking about your hydration strategy, keeping in mind that you want to take in what I consider or call small doses throughout the hour. So we've been on the bike now for 15 minutes or so, just about that. So, make sure that you're starting to drink, starting to consume some calories in small amounts that are easily digested and easily absorbed. Because it's what you do now early in the race that directly affects how you feel later on in the race. And no matter how good you feel right now, things are bound to change later on. And if you don't manage your nutrition properly and your hydration properly early on, then you're going to be in for a world of hurt later on. And that's the difference between a successful race and an unsuccessful race for many people. So on a hot sunny day like this on race day, make sure that you have as much skin covered as possible and that you've got plenty of sunblock on. I remember one year in Hawaii, back in the early 1990s, I made the mistake of wearing a very small race outfit that exposed a lot of skin. Back in those days, we used to wear Speedos on the bike, even in Kona. And I got such horrible sunburn. It was just a horrible day and a horrible week after the race too. I think I was in shock. I had such bad sunburn. So coming from the East Coast, heading out to Kona in October, just wasn't ready for that, and then not wearing enough covering. It was just a really bad experience, and I learned my lesson. So I'm passing that lesson on to you so that you can hopefully wear plenty of clothing and plenty of sunblock so you don't have those same problems. Some of you will listen, some of you won't. That's the way life is. Still riding along. Lots of traffic on this road, as you can see. Here's some traffic up ahead slowing us down, but you won't have the same problem most likely on race day, so don't worry about that. But we are on River Road right now, heading out into the countryside, getting there slowly but surely. Our intensity right now, if you're doing this workout as a long aerobic endurance training day, we want to be somewhere around 75% of your maximal effort, so we're just going steady aerobic. If you are working with a power meter right now, which many of you may be doing, then we certainly want to be well below your functional threshold, probably somewhere in the range of, say, 60 to 70% of your functional threshold. So keeping it nice and steady, nothing really hard. I do want you to focus on cadence. I want to have you maintain a higher cadence because that is an important component of iron distance racing, is not to push those really heavy gears with high resistance that creates a lot of muscular fatigue. So keep that in mind. Work on that cadence. There are days in your training when you should do that high resistance work for sure, but for this particular workout or any race simulation workout, let's try to keep those gears in a range where you can turn those pedals in that mid 80 RPM. So riding along out of town, still pretty, for the most part, a pretty level stretch of road. Again, if you're on a tri bike, get down on those aero bars because we want you to practice being in that position and really refine your position so you get maximum power output while in your maximum aerodynamic position. So as little frontal resistance as you can offer while still being able to produce maximal power. And that takes some time to learn exactly what that is, and it takes a really keen eye, a really experienced bike fit expert to help you do that in most cases. Even the very best athletes are always tweaking their position here and there, and millimeters matter. Keep that in mind. Millimeters matter. So your saddle height, you might change that by a couple millimeters, and it'll have a tremendous impact on your power output. Keep that in mind. That's why a lot of really strong cyclists will always carry around their multi-tool with their wrenches and hop off the bike and just tweak and figure out exactly what works for them. And then once they have that nailed down, they will write those numbers down, and that is what they maintain as their position for all their bikes. Of course, your tri bike will be different than your road bike, and most of the athletes in this ride, as you can see, are on tri bikes. I'm actually on a road bike for this ride, for no other reason than I'm a little bit more comfortable on a road bike, and the year we videotaped this workout, I wasn't racing. But if I was racing, actively racing, I'd be riding my tri-bike and getting used to that position, as these athletes are. So still riding along, cadence in the mid-80s, your intensity, if you're on the trainer, you're still probably in your small chain ring, 15 on the back, but it's up to you. You can play around with your resistance and your gearing. Try to keep it in that aerobic range so that you're not working too hard and burning those matches, as we've discussed already. And your cadence is in that mid-85 RPM range. So you get out of this workout what you put into it, as with any workout on the trainer. And of course, that's the value in doing this type of training or spin intervals workout, is you actually have a focus and a purpose, as opposed to just watching a TV show. And hopefully you're able to maintain your mental focus and intensity so that your mind's not wandering, and you actually get some real benefit out of this workout session. Because as you can see, we still have a little bit over 3 hours to go, so don't get bored. I mean, that's part of endurance sports training, is training your mind not to get bored, not to lose focus, because let's face it can get boring, especially on the trainer. So you need to do things that keep you focused. And a lot of research, a lot of studies have been done to say that elite athletes stay in the moment. They stay present. They don't let their minds wander. So let's stay focused on this course. Do this ride as preparation for the race. Keep that cadence up, keep that heart rate up, keep that power in the correct range. Lots of traffic on this road, so be careful out there. Now again, this road's called River. The first part of the course, fairly level, fairly flat stretch of road. Pretty decent. You can see the pavement is decent here. Still want to watch out for the occasional pothole, but for the most part, it's in pretty good shape. Just no shoulder, so training on here can be a little bit treacherous with all the traffic. Truck up ahead. Now this would be your long aerobic endurance ride. So if you're using a heart rate scale of exertion, you're probably looking at a zone 3 heart rate for this ride, which is somewhere below or near your anaerobic threshold. I'm a big proponent of keeping the heart rate 10 beats or so below AT for rides like this. Once in a while letting it creep up into that, what I call the gray zone. So that's okay for this type of workout, but for the most part you want to maximize your aerobic energy production. So keeping that heart rate 10 beats or so below your AT is a good idea. And for some people, actually 15 beats below AT. That would be the upper ceiling for this type of ride, which is still moderate in intensity. Once you start letting that heart rate creep up near AT, you're working pretty hard. You're burning some carbohydrate, some fat, which is fine. You just don't want to do workouts of that intensity in that gray zone too often, because if you do, the result for many people is it makes them feel flat, and they're never able to really have that high quality workout where you work at or near or above your AT. That quality work is when you're really going to finish off the high end and build the high end. And that's really important for anybody who wants to race effectively and build their power and sustainable power. Now, of course, aerobic energy production is key for any long-distance endurance athlete, because when you're out there on race day, out there for over 9 hours, and for many people well over 12 hours, you need to be able to spare muscle glycogen and utilize fat as a very important source of fuel. So training that aerobic energy system is key and critical. So keep that in mind as you prepare your training program for any of your triathlons, in particular your iron distance events. Some nice scenery here. We see the field to the right. Nice blue skies. This really is a scenic course. The rolling horse country of Louisville. It's really nice riding out here. Once you get out of town at least. And it's not as much traffic. But you still get all these very narrow country roads. So you have to always be careful. And be respectful of the residents in the area and the traffic, the motor traffic in the area. We don't want anybody to get hurt, of course, or get really upset with the cyclists and triathletes who come into town each year to train for the event. Riding along nice and steady, just as a reminder, let's maintain your good form. Keep your knees into your top tube and your upper body's nice and relaxed. If you're on your tri-bike, get down on those aero bars, get comfortable in that position. Little things like having your neck, keeping your neck or your eyes forward. It's important because you want to build those neck muscles so you're more comfortable down in those aero bars and your lower back as well. All these things are important, and when you're training indoors a lot over the winter months, you lose some of that outdoor cycling fitness. Little things like postural muscles aren't really used very much when you're indoors on the trainer. So I've actually known some athletes who will wear their helmet on the trainer inside, so they have that little bit of weight, and their neck muscles get conditioned for outdoor riding. Looks kind of funny, wearing your helmet inside on the trainer. But I know some people who actually should wear their helmet on the trainer because they're klutzy and they tend to fall off the trainer once in a while. Not calling anybody out, just saying. Nice and steady, and here we go to make a right, and this is a right on Wolf Pen Branch Road. Now all of a sudden we have a little bit of a climb coming up, so get ready for that. Nice and steady. Lift your cadence a little bit if you have to. We want to keep it steady. Use the entire pedal stroke, push down, pull up. We're keeping it nice and steady here. We still want to maintain a cadence between 75 and 85 RPMs. So go to a gearing that allows you to do that. In the case of being on the trainer right now, you're going to be in your big chain ring on the front and your 15 on the back. As you can see, this grade kicks up and we're starting to climb. I'd like to see you stay seated because you're more efficient when you're seated. So keep that cadence up there, but you're using more resistance right now. Your power output's gone up if you're using a power meter. You still want to maintain your discipline so that you're below your functional threshold power, because again, you don't want to burn your matches this early on in the race. So keep it steady, keep that cadence up. And if you're on a spin bike right now, bring that resistance level up to a 2 or 3, most likely a 3, as we climb this hill. Now, if you have to, you can stand up and stretch your legs out, and that's actually a good idea every 10 or 15 minutes, just to keep yourself stretched out. use some different muscle groups so you don't fatigue the same muscle groups all day. So stand up if you wish, but let's keep that resistance up a little bit higher as we climb this hill. Still a lot of vehicle traffic on this road. Won't be as bad on race day. Use good pedaling technique, push down, pull up. We're almost to the top here, almost to the top. Keep it steady. Now the actual course has changed over the years, so the year that you're doing the course, doing the race, the course might be a little bit different than what we're doing today. But usually the changes aren't that significant, just a different road here and there. And as you can see, we're coming up to make a left turn onto the main road, or this busy road, State Road 42. Okay, and here we go. We're off again, making a left onto State Road 42. And again, this road's a little bit heavy in terms of traffic, but it's got a wide shoulder, fortunately, so it's not that bad. And it's pretty fast right here because we're going to be heading downhill, so get ready. Of course, we will have to contend with some lights that you won't have to contend with on race day. So right now we're on an easier stretch of road, so we're going to be in our small chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and let's put your spinner bike tension, or resistance rather, on a 1 or a 2. Let's get that cadence up. Again, we're working probably higher 80 RPM range right now. High 80 RPM range or thereabout. Going pretty fast here, heading down this hill, probably around 35 miles per hour because it is a fast descent. So get down on those aero bars, get that cadence up, start bringing that heart rate back up after that little rest. Get that up in your aerobic endurance range, high zone 2 into zone 3. Bring that power up, keep it consistent. Keep it consistent. That's what it's all about, maintaining a steady, reasonable power output. On race day, one strategy to consider on a steep downhill is to conserve your energy and let your momentum carry you down the hill and just get a nice aerodynamic tuck and not really work very hard. That's a decent strategy for many. While they're doing that, they'll also be mindful of eating and drinking while they're not working the pedals. So that's something to consider. Those of you who will be very competitive, you will probably continue to pedal down the hill. But there's a point of diminishing returns when you're going downhill. At a certain speed, you have to work really hard to gain any additional speed, and that cost of working really hard might not be worth the additional speed gain. You might be better off just resting and allowing the heart rate to come down a little bit and not using any more energy. Here we are at another stoplight. Okay, here we go again. Let's go again to your small chain ring 15. We're right back into it. Get that cadence back up in the mid to upper 80s if you're on your spinner bike. Resistance of 1 or 2. You're sitting right now on my wheel as we ride along. We have some strong athletes here riding with me today, athletes from the training studio. They are a personal training company from the Louisville, Kentucky area. They have a strong running and triathlon training group. They prepare for lots of different events in the area. They travel together outside of the state as well. And we've been hosting our training camp in coordination with the training studio there in Louisville for a few years now. And they do a great job. Lots of great support. The owner is Benedict, the guy in this ride with us today. Dale himself is an Ironman athlete. And does a lot to support multi-sport training and racing in the Louisville, Kentucky area. And the other riders with us today are very strong competitive age group athletes, and I really do appreciate them joining us on this ride, showing us this course. Okay, we're riding again. Let's be in your small chain ring 15. And we're just riding along. Keep that cadence up. If you need to adjust your resistance, go to a harder gear, whatever you'd like to do, feel free. Again, some of you might be doing this as a race simulation, so if that's the case, you'll probably be in your big chain ring on the front right now in your trainer and around your 15 on the back, maintaining that cadence in the mid 80 RPM range and that heart rate in that zone 3 range, which is also characterized as the gray zone, but certainly below your anaerobic threshold because, again, you don't want to burn through those matches, but keep it steady. One of the values in doing this type of video is to preview the course. I know it's difficult to get a sense of the grade, but at least you can see what the roads will look like and get a general concept of what the course will be like, and that's what it's all about. Not to mention that important component of endurance sports racing I mentioned before, and that is maintaining your focus. So if you can, don't get bored, finish the workout, don't quit early. That's part of the game. Because you know how it goes. If you start quitting now, it's easier to quit on race day. So don't quit your workouts. Once you start, you got to finish. It's the way it is. As I'm sure you know, if you've ever run a marathon or done an iron distance event of any sort, once you start walking on that run, for example, through the aid stations, it's easier to walk through others. So a lot of athletes will make it their goal to not walk or try not to walk through aid stations, because once you slow down or stop, it's easier to keep doing that. Same thing for this indoor training stuff. This is a great mental exercise to keep yourself focused and build that mental tolerance to endure. So you can see up ahead the road's going down a little bit here, but then it's going to kick back up ever so slightly. It looks like a little bit of a roller coming up. So let's go to your big chain ring on the front, increase your resistance a little bit, bring your spinner bike up to a resistance of maybe around 3, and your cadence, let's keep that in that mid 80 RPM range. The road's kicking up just a little bit here. This is a difficult course, by the way, so don't think that watching this on video really gives you the perfect concept of what the course is about. I highly recommend that if you get a chance, you get out there and actually ride it live. Do it on your own, do it with a group, whatever. But actually ride the course, preview it in real life at a training camp or with a small training group, whatever you can do, just to get a true sense of the course. Because I tell you what, by the end of it, your legs will be tired. Doesn't matter what kind of fitness you have going into it. Never take a course like this for granted. And especially with the heat and humidity as it can be in August. You've got to be ready for it. You've got to have that fitness. You've got to have the miles in the legs. Okay, looks like Dale's riding off the front there, so let's get back up to him. Let's be sure we're in the big chain ring on the front and that 15 on the back, and if you're on that spinner bike, put that resistance at around a 3. And you can lift your tempo a little bit, as we do have a little bit of a gradual climb here, as you can see. So our resistance on the pedals should be a little bit higher. Power output steady, but probably raising a little bit. Keep in mind that zone 3 effort. You can see how our pace is slowed a little bit, so you can anticipate the same thing as you're on State Route 42. There's some rollers here and these gradual climbs. Traffic's not so bad because you have a double lane highway, a little bit of a shoulder, so it's a little bit better in that regard. So keep it steady. Again, don't burn your matches on this area. If you want to stand up a little bit, that's fine. But it's all about discipline and keeping yourself steady, especially this early in the race. It's so easy for athletes, no matter what their experience, to think, gosh, I feel so good right now. I'm done that swim. A lot of triathletes can't wait to get out of the water anyway, so fired up about being on the bike, and they feel strong, and they tend to just take it out too hard. And that's always a big mistake for anyone. It's hard to recover from a deficit if you go out too hard early on the bike. So you always need to conserve. That's one thing I want to remind you. The other thing I just want to say is bike fitness is so important for this distance triathlon. For any triathlon for that matter, because most of the tri is on the bike. But for the iron distance and other long course triathlons, having that bike fitness is so important because it helps translate to the run. If you have good cycling legs, you have a chance to have a solid run. You can be the best runner in the world, but if you don't have the cycling legs and you try to ride too hard, you're not going to be able to run to your potential. So you've got to develop that cycling leg. Not to mention, you can put in a tremendous amount of volume on the bike without getting yourself hurt as compared to the run. You put in too much volume on the run, it's easy to get injured because running is so demanding on the body. Cycling is a lot easier on the body, but you can still develop your aerobic fitness so effectively. So So we're riding along here at a pretty steady clip. Looks like we've gone over that slight grade, that slight climb. We've got a bunch of rollers coming up. Let's stay in that same gearing. Big chain ring 15 on the back. Keep it nice and steady. I want to encourage you to switch your gears as you feel necessary and appropriate so that you get a good workout in here. But try to stay with the basic theme of this workout to the best of your ability. Big chain ring 15, riding along here. A little bit busier road. As you can see, it came back to one lane. And there's no shoulder. And there's a fair amount of traffic. So, got to be careful. Maintain that good form, knees in your top tube, upper body's nice and still. Keep that cadence in that mid 80 RPM range. Now your nutrition strategy. Got to remind you, what have you been doing? Have you been taking some drinks from your water bottle? Have you been taking in some calories? Maintaining your fluid intake? All that's important. Most athletes, depending on body weight, depending on experience, will need to consume somewhere in the ballpark of 200 to 300 calories per hour. Heavier athletes, perhaps a little bit more. Lighter athletes, perhaps a little bit less. It's a very individual thing, but that's going to be your range. Remember, you can't replace calories on a 1-to-1 ratio, so if you calculate that you burn, say, 700 calories per hour, don't try to consume that many calories because you'll end up having an issue with your stomach emptying. And that creates all kinds of other problems later on in the race, like bloating and not absorbing any of the energy you're consuming. So you want to maximize your calorie intake, but you can't overdo it. Also, make sure that every time you consume a calorie, you take some water with it to dilute the concentration of that calorie in your gut to give it a better chance to be absorbed quicker. And all these things you need to work on in training prior to race day. Don't get to race day, start changing up your nutrition strategy from what you've been doing in training. Be consistent. That's so key. So find out what works for you in training. Using this video is a great way to start that process, and then stick with it. Find out what works and then stick with it. Riding along, big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. This is a rolling stretch of road here. Just keep it steady. Keep your wheel straight on that line. You don't want to use any excess energy by wobbling around on the road. Try to hold that straight line as you're riding along. If you're on that tri bike, stay down on those aero bars. If you're on a road bike, get down on those drops. Stay aerodynamic. Try to stay as aerodynamic as possible at all times, especially when your speed is over 18 miles per hour. That's where you're going to get more benefit from that being in that aerodynamic tuck. still keeping it steady. Big chain ring on the front, around your 15 on the back. Nice steady effort here. Cadence in that mid 80 RPM range. Building your aerobic endurance, working in that zone 3. You're going at what I would consider to be a moderate pace right now. Something well within your comfort zone, but you're pushing a little bit. In this kind of event, this kind of race, this kind of training session for that matter, there's no real need to surge, because when you surge, you bring yourself well above your threshold, which is counterproductive for this kind of event. It's all about disciplining yourself to stay at a steady, high aerobic pace, which is where you should be at this stage of this training video. Keep that cadence up. Again, a reminder to drink a little bit, to eat a little bit in measured doses, say every 10 to 20 minutes. Take in some fluids, take in some calories. No matter how well you feel at the beginning, you want to start that energy management, that nutrition management early on. You get too far into the race and you forget, or you just say, hey, I feel great now, I don't need anything now. That's where you run into trouble later on. Yeah, of course, you could ride for 3 hours without eating anything. Maybe drinking, that's a different story, especially on a really hot day. But it doesn't matter how you're feeling at 3 hours. It matters how you feel when you're getting off the bike and into the run. And then, of course, as you're in the latter stages of the run. That'll make or break your day overall. And it's nice to have that really fast bike split in the results, but in the end analysis, I don't think it really matters who rode their bike the fastest when it comes to iron distance racing. What really matters in the end is, first of all, if you finish, you definitely want to finish, but secondly, what your overall time is. And that comes back to managing your pace in the swim, the bike, and then the run. So you got to be smart, you got to race a disciplined race, and that starts with your training. A lot of these country roads out here. Now, this is still a pretty busy section of road, and race day, it'll be probably a little less traffic, but if you're out there training, be prepared for some fairly busy stretches of road till you get a little further out into the course. Now, for this workout, we're going to do most of the course. However, we're not going to do the second loop. You can run through the video and start that over again if you'd like, to give yourself a sense of what that's all about. But at least you get a preview of every stretch of road on the course. Going pretty fast here, but I want you staying in that same gearing. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and just keep it nice and steady. Nice steady output. Get down on those aero bars, get down on those drops. Get used to being in that position. You got to train the way you're going to race. You got to train the way you're going to race. A little bit of road construction, some telephone wire construction going on here. Beautiful neighborhoods out here. Suburbs of Louisville. riding right on my wheel. Stay on my wheel. Stay as close as you can. Keep that cadence steady. Let's not see a big fluctuation in cadence. Keep it steady. Again, keep in mind we have a couple different options for our DVDs. You can either use the voice only track or you can use the voice plus music track. It's up to you. Now, as with much of this workout, your intensity level right now should be around 75, up maybe up to 80%. Don't want you going any higher than that. Keep it in that 75 to 80% range for most of this workout, because again, that's in that roughly zone 3 intensity range for most of you. So you're working at a level of output where you're stressing your aerobic endurance system, your muscular endurance system, but you're not going anaerobic. You're not doing that. Keeping yourself disciplined not to go anaerobic. Road takes a little bit of a downward slope here, but then as you can see, it kicks back up. So we're just going to keep it steady. I'm not going to have you shift gears all over the place. Let's just keep it steady while you're on the trainer. That's one of the huge advantages of indoor training. You get to have this nice steady power output curve rather, throughout the workout with no obstacles in the way or changes in the road or stoplights or stop signs. So you really do maximize every second of your training when you're indoors on that trainer. Just keep it steady. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. If you're on a spinner bike, keep that resistance on a level 3. Let's try to keep that cadence in that 80, mid-80 RPM range. Position-wise, down on the aero bars, down on the drops. Nice and low at the front. Good job. Roads out here getting a little bit nicer. You can see the pavement's a little bit smoother. Looks like they recently blacktopped these roads, which is nice. No real potholes, which will make for a slightly faster ride, certainly more comfortable ride. Still some traffic out here. And as you can see, the road's nice and rolling. Keep that output steady. Course like this, you'll start to see things break up a little bit on the bike at this point in time, because you do have some rollers. As we get further into the course, we are going to hit some more hills, and things tend to shatter apart even more at that point. But you have to be conscious of the drafting zone. Make sure you're not drafting when you're out there on race day. You certainly don't want to get hit with a drafting penalty after training so hard and putting so much energy and time into your training for this event. So be aware of what the current drafting rules are, and do your best not to cheat, basically, by drafting. There's just such a huge advantage that those cheaters get when they draft. Now, I know oftentimes it's difficult for some people to get out of the packs, because packs can form out there, but do your best not to. Of course, on this training video, the riders are all together because it is just a training ride. But you'll be several bike lengths apart out there on race day. Nice and steady. Keep it nice and steady. Cadence in that mid 80 RPM range. As I mentioned before, it'd be a great idea to try to get out here on the course in person and do it yourself several weeks before race day, or at least one time prior to race day, just to get a real feel for what the course is like. Riding along nice and steady. Always thinking about your good form. Knees in your top tube, upper body's nice and relaxed. Let your legs do the work. Keep that power output steady and predictable. No huge surges. Just try to keep it a steady power curve. You're going at a nice moderate zone 3 pace, building your aerobic endurance. I suggest that your gearing ratio being that big chain ring on the front and your 15 or so on the trainer. Most of you will have a fluid trainer. Probably one of the better brands would be Kinetic fluid trainers. Very consistent and predictable power curve. And here we're making a right turn onto Route 1694. And this is the dog leg out and back. There you go, south on 1694. So we're actually going to head all the way out. We have some nice rollers here and actually a nice climb on this stretch of road. Out and then again back. Right now I still want your intensity or your resistance to be at around 75-85%, or I'm sorry, 75 to 80%, somewhere in that range.
Route 1694. This is probably one of the harder parts of the course. In fact, we're going to go 5 miles out and 5 miles back. Rolling hills, some climbs where you're just going to be seated. You need to get into a rhythm, and once in a while you're going to want to stand up too. All right, you guys ready to go?
Ready.
All right, let's do it.
And we're off. Let's get right back into our selected gearing here. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. This road's kind of nice because there's not a whole lot of traffic. You're able to be a little bit more relaxed in terms of not worrying about cars, but you always need to be mindful of cars. Get back into our rhythm here. Get back into our rhythm. Make sure you're taking in your fluids. Make sure you're taking in your calories. Still very early in the race. Not time to get too excited about anything, that's for sure. You still have a long, long day ahead of you. A lot of training ahead of you as well. So stay focused, stay in the moment. Don't let your mind wander a whole lot. And whatever you do, don't get bored. This type of long indoor training session will test both your physical and your mental endurance. But that's what it's all about. You have to have these tests in training in order to do well out there on race day. I know some athletes who will simulate the temperature and humidity of the course. They'll actually crank up the heat in their training room and sweat as much as possible, which is a good idea. Actually, there's some significant research showing that if you train in hotter conditions, you'll acclimate better. So wearing additional clothing, turning up the heat in your training room can improve your performance. So keep that in mind. Keep that cadence up, mid 80 RPM range, big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and keep that spinner bike tension on about a 3 on that scale from 1 to 5, 5 being very difficult to turn those cranks. Nice steady power output. Get down on those aero bars, get down on those drops. Carrie and Courtney are two very strong age group athletes, very strong cyclists. Riding with good form. How are you feeling right now? Feeling strong? Take a little bit of a body inventory. See how you're feeling. Start with your lower legs. Move up through your lower legs. Up through your quads, up through your glutes. Monitor the gauges, so to speak. Always paying attention to how you're feeling. Use that heart rate monitor as an indicator to your intensity. Same with power meters. Use your power meter. Make sure that you're in that right training zone so that you're getting the most you can out of this and other workouts. Train with a purpose. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. Keep that cadence up. Cadence up. I keep saying mid 80 RPM range because that's typically the sweet spot for most athletes, where they're going to be comfortable putting out a significant amount of power, but not pushing a gear that's too large with too much resistance and creating too much fatigue. Stay on my wheel, come right back up to my wheel. We're soft pedaling a little bit, but I want you to maintain your focus, maintain your effort too. Still in your big chain ring, 15. Keep that cadence up there. Keep that power output steady. That's it. Good job. Might be time to eat, might be time to drink, so don't forget. Don't forget, if you have to, set your watch to beep every 15 minutes or so as a reminder. Don't get 2 hours into the ride and say, oh, I've only drank one water bottle or I've only had one gel. I think if you do that, you'll be in a deficit. And again, even for this workout, you don't want to be in a deficit for a 3-hour workout. You won't be able to finish with a high energy level. You want to maintain your energy level by making sure that you're pacing yourself properly and consuming adequate fluid and carbohydrate. And again, it's crucial for race day. You drop the ball on that, you're in trouble later on in the race. I can't stress that enough. You have to start early and you have to be consistent throughout the day. So here we're descending. So what I'd like for you to do is go to a slightly easier gear inch. Take it up to maybe your 19 or 21 on the back. Lower that resistance on your spinner bike to a 1 or 2, and let's get that cadence up over 90 RPMs as we descend this hill. Going down this hill pretty quickly, so let's pretend we're pedaling hard. Truck up. Still some traffic on this road, so got to be careful out here as well. But we're going pretty fast downhill, and keep in mind you're going to climb this hill because this is an out and back. And as you can tell already, it's a nice, steady, fast descent. And you're going to burn through some energy coming back up this hill as well. So cranking down this hill, probably going around 35, 40 miles per hour. Might be a good time to conserve and just soft pedal on race day. However, we want to get a training effect, so I want your cadence up above 90 RPMs, keeping it steady, still going downhill fast. You, on race day, you'll probably be in a nice aerodynamic tuck, letting your weight and momentum and gravity do the work for you. Good job. Doing a nice job descending here, holding a nice line. Now this bridge coming up, lots of potholes. A lot of people will have their water bottles just pop right out, so you got to be careful. There we go, safely over the bridge. And of course, whatever goes down must come back up. So we're going to have some climbing up ahead. So now your cadence will drop a little bit as we start to climb. Let's go to a higher resistance, larger gear inch. Let's go your big chain ring on the front and your 15 on the back. Maybe even a little bit more resistance. As you can see, we're climbing, so let's simulate this climb by making it harder on your trainer. If you're on a spinner bike, take that resistance up to maybe a 3 or even a 4. And I want you to use good form, okay? Maybe scoot back on the saddle ever so slightly here. Use more of your hamstrings, more of your glutes. And nice steady climbing technique. Just keep that cadence up in that mid 85 RPM range. Upper body's relaxed, let your legs do the work. That's it, keep that cadence steady. You don't want to turn this climb into this big gear mashing fest with a really low cadence. That's not the idea. But on the trainer here, keep that resistance high enough where you're getting some kind of climbing simulation. There you go. Nice and steady, nice and steady. Push down and pull up. Push down and pull up. See Carrie here is doing a nice job. Stay on her wheel. Hey, buddy. Nice and steady up this climb. Again, you're going to be heading down this hill on a fast descent on the way back in and then hitting that next climb. So there are a couple climbs here, and this will spread the race out a little bit because up to this point, with the exception of that one more difficult climb on Wolf Pen Branch Road, it's been rolling for the most part. But now these climbs will tend to break things up a little bit more. And this is also where you can run into some trouble because if you start getting that real competitive fire and people start passing you or you want to stay up with someone and you start burning your matches on these climbs, again, you'll run into some trouble later on in the race. So maintain your discipline and stay within yourself on these climbs early on in the race. If you do that, you're going to have a lot more energy for later on. It's all about energy management. So still climbing, steady cadence, keep it up there, 80 RPMs. If you have to, you feel a need to stretch out, you can stand up, but don't make it a standing climb. Stretch out, stand up for a few pedal strokes, maybe 10, maybe a dozen, and then have a seat and regain your rhythm seated, because that's how you're going to be more efficient and use less energy. Keep that cadence up. Don't let that cadence drop too much. Keep that upper body still and relaxed. These riders are doing a nice job. Still dealing with a fair amount of resistance right now, still in your big chain ring, maybe you're 15 or so. On the back, I want you to maintain your output. Be consistent with that. You know, we're doing an aerobic endurance zone 3 type workout here. So I still want you to be in that comfort zone, but moderately intense. So keep that intensity up. Here we have a little bit of a downhill. If you want to soft pedal, let a little bit of that effort relax a little bit. That's okay on this downhill. But as you can see, we have a little bit of a climb coming up again. So keep that resistance up. Keep that resistance higher. Get back into your rhythm. You can see these riders are letting their momentum take them up this hill, and then they're regaining their pedaling rhythm. That's it. Shift to a gear you can manage. Stand up a little bit if you have to. Stay on the wheel in front of you in this training effort. Good job. Looking good, looking good, looking strong, looking strong. That turnaround's coming up. Turnaround's just up ahead. Now on race day, of course, you will have seen a lot of athletes heading back the other direction. If you're competitive with someone, you'll be able to see them and either how far up on them you are or how far up they are on you. One of the nice things about having an out and back in any race, you can gauge the competition. But as I've said, you can't really rely on competition to dictate your pace when it comes to iron distance racing. You've got to race your own race, because if you don't, there can be consequences later on in the race. So the turnaround's coming up. Here we go. Right back around. Gathering everybody back up, so if you want to soft pedal a little bit here, go right ahead. And now we're rolling right back into it. So let's go back to your big chain ring on the front, your 15 on the back. Let's get back up to speed here, get that heart rate back up and rolling along. Get yourself mentally prepared, because that really fast descent we had earlier, we're going to be climbing that here shortly. So start taking in some extra fluid in preparation for that right about now, as well as getting yourself mentally prepared for that climb. So big chain ring around your 15, spinner bike resistance on about a 3, cadence mid 80 RPM range. Maintain your focus and don't get bored. We still have a ways to go here before this workout's over, and a long ways to go before this bike ride's over as a whole. But you're starting to get a sense of what this course looks like, which is good, as well as a really strong aerobic endurance workout, which you should be doing at least once a week. Once a week, this kind of training session of roughly 3 hours or more will do a lot to benefit your fitness. You should also have some aerobic intensity workouts, lower intensity aerobic workouts during the week, and of course, depending on where you are in your progression or your periodized schedule, some higher intensity sessions, sometimes tempo work where you're working on building threshold, and other times high intensity interval training where you're well above threshold for shorter, high intensity efforts. Every component should be incorporated into your weekly training cycle at certain stages throughout the year. And if you're not familiar with these different stages or how to set up a scientifically based training program, you should really look into it and maybe even consider hiring a coach, someone who can help guide you through that process and develop a training program specifically for you that makes sense. If you're interested in that, you should come to my website, coachtroy.com, or go to spinnervals.com and learn more about personal coaching that I offer, as well as from my associate coaches who work with me. But we can help guide you through the process, get you ready for the event, incorporate the training camp experience, recommend different training DVDs in our series that you can utilize in your training program to help prepare you for your key events each year. And I tell you what, most really strong athletes out there work with a coach. It's always a good idea to get that outside perspective regarding your training program, your progress. Sometimes a coach is valuable in just holding you back a little bit, keeping you from overtraining. So we're going down a hill pretty quickly here, as you can see. Big chain ring on the front. Let's go to about your 21 on the back. Get that cadence up over 90 RPMs, 75 to 80 on that perceived effort scale. Keep that intensity steady. Get that cadence up as we go down this hill at a rapid pace around 35, 40 miles per hour. See me up front there tucking, trying to get aero on that road bike. The athletes behind me are sitting in the slipstream, and we're going over this bridge. Watch out for your water bottles. There you go. See the potholes? Got to watch out for that. A little bit rough, and then the road gets smooth again after we get over that bridge. But you know what's coming up. It's that climb. So get yourself ready. Let's go to a slightly harder gear because we're going to the reverse of what we'd be doing out there on the actual road. I want to simulate what you'll be experiencing out there on the road. So right now, I want you in your big chain ring on the front, and let's take it down to about that 13 on the back. So lots of resistance. Crank up that adjustment knob on your spinner bike so you're at around a 4 as we climb this hill, but we want to keep that effort steady. Cadence might drop a little bit. You might be in that upper 70, low 80 RPM range. As you can see here, the climb just keeps getting a little bit steeper, and it's a long, gradual climb. So here's when you need to get into a rhythm. If you want to stand up every once in a while, that's okay, but get into a nice rhythm. and utilize that entire pedal stroke, pushing down and pulling up. You can see me up front there as I'm keeping that cadence fairly high. Keep that cadence up. Most people will sit up a little bit, maybe scoot back on the saddle for a climb like this. Being aerodynamic isn't such a factor when you're going slower. So right now, say we're going about 12 to say 15 miles per hour, being aerodynamic is not so important as it is when you're going faster. So get into a nice comfortable climbing position. Save your energy, conserve your energy by keeping your upper body nice and still. As you can see, I am right here, letting my legs do the work. Climbing this hill, staying seated, pushing down, pulling up. Upper body's nice and relaxed. Good stuff. If you need to stand up, stretch your legs out. Now would be a good time. Stand up a little bit, stretch your legs out, and then have a seat. Some traffic here on the road. Still climbing. Keep it steady. Remember, you don't want to burn your matches, so even on this long climb, you have to stay well within yourself in that comfort zone so that you don't go anaerobic and burn through your matches. You're still so early in this race. And the good news is you won't have to do this again. This is the only time you have to do this dog leg, at least as the course is laid out at the present moment. That might change in the future. It's hard to say.
Okay, nice and steady up this climb. This is a climb to stay seated. Remember to ankle through your pedal stroke, okay? Nice rhythm. Get that cadence up around 80 RPMs and just spin right up these hills. Nice and steady.
Keep it steady. Keep that rhythm. It looks like we're getting towards the top and we're going to crest and it's going to flatten out a little bit. So maintain your rhythm, maintain your momentum. Everyone's keeping their cadence up nice and high, which is great to see. Good form, keeping their upper bodies relaxed and still. All important things when it comes to conserving energy for these long races and long workouts. don't know when the last time it was that you took a drink, but make sure you take some fluids. Maybe take a few calories in right about now. Stay on my wheel right here. Got a pretty quick pedaling action going on. Cadence in the mid-80s, which is where you should be. Stay nice and relaxed. Looking good, looking good, looking strong. Looks like a great day for riding. Nice sunny day in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a hot one though. A little bit of a breeze blowing. You can see the grass moving to the right there. Nice day for riding. Wind definitely can be a factor for this race, by the way, especially when you're heading back into town on River Road. Sometimes there can be a nice stiff headwind in the latter stages of the bike, roughly from 100 miles into the finish. So that's something to really think about. You can be suffering that late in the bike. You've been on the bike at that stage of the game for probably over 5 hours, and you hit a stiff headwind. That can be a little bit demoralizing, especially when your legs are really tired and you know you've got a marathon to run. So just be prepared. Be mentally prepared for that kind of adversity out there on race day. That's the interesting thing about long course racing for any endurance sport, whether it's triathlon, cycling, running. You've got to be prepared for adversity, whether it's equipment malfunction, cramping, whatever. Because the longer the race, the more likely you're going to have some problems out there. And if you're ready for it, if you know how to deal with it, or at least you have an idea of how to deal with it, you'll be a lot better off. Okay, so here we are. We're going downhill a little bit, flattening out a little bit. So let's take it to your 15 on the back and reduce that resistance a little bit. Go to about a 2 or 3 on that spinner bike and bring your cadence back up into that mid-80 RPM range. Your effort should stay about the same. You know, we're trying to stay consistent with our output. So say you've been at 200 watts on your power meter for most of this workout. That's where you should be right now. And in fact, if you were at 200 watts, even for our climb that we did up that hill, you shouldn't really let it drift up much higher than that. You should maintain that discipline so that you don't let it get up above AT or up near your functional threshold even. You want to keep it nice and under control. Again, not burning your matches, because we're still very, very early on in this race. And you'll get a lot of coaches, a lot of professionals that say the bike ride or the race doesn't really start until about mile 80. If you're feeling strong at mile 80, you're in a good position. You're in a good state. If you're feeling really tired on the bike at mile 80, you might have gone a little bit too hard, and you might have some troubles later on. So keep it steady. You can see the wind kicking up a little bit. Everyone's hair is blowing a little bit. At least Carrie and Courtney's hair is blowing a little bit. Dale and I don't have that problem right now. Looking good. Maintain that steady cadence. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Keep that spinner bike resistance on 2 or 3. Everyone's up on their hoods and or on their drops, and that's okay right now because, well, as you can see here, we're going down on aero bars. That's a good idea. When you're in a pack, depending on the situation on the road, you'll probably want to be near your brakes with your hands in most cases, so you have more control over your bike, especially if you're riding 2 abreast. When you're riding single file like we are right now, you can get down your aero bars as long as you're confident in your handling of the bike. Obviously, when you're down on the aero bars, you don't have the same level of handling or same level of control over your bike as you do when your hands are on the hoods or near the brakes. So keep that in mind when you're out riding with the group next time. You certainly don't want to be responsible for taking the group down. So we're sitting up a little bit. Looks like we might have our turn coming back up here, back onto Route 42. It would be a right turn, and that'll take you back out on the Route 42. A little bit more traffic on the road, so get ready for that. You can soft pedal a little bit here, go to an easier gear if you'd like. Maybe go to your small chainring 15, and we'll let you recover ever so slightly. Soft pedal a little bit of recovery effort here. Let the heart rate come down. Use this opportunity to drink some more fluid, take in a few calories. Here we go, right turn. Clear left, clear right. Rolling right through. Okay, let's get back into our big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back into our rhythm. That steady state rhythm that we're looking for. High aerobic, zone 3, steady power output. Get back down those aero bars, back down on those drops. So we're out on Route 42. A little bit more traffic out here. Now keep in mind that out and back we just did, you won't do that again. That's the one and only time you'll do that on race day. And as I mentioned before, that's where things get blown apart a little bit because of those hills. But you don't want to overcook it. You have to conserve. Conserve. Name of the game when it comes to iron distance racing. A little bit shaky here, but that'll smooth out. Going downhill here, if you want to go to a slightly easier gear, you can bring that cadence up maybe 5 RPMs or so. I want to maintain a steady output, so maybe you're on your big chain ring on the front and roughly your 17 on the back. That would be okay as we head down this hill. Bring that cadence up into the low 90s. Get down on those aero bars. Pretend you're going down this hill pretty quickly here. Bring that cadence up ever so slightly. Try to simulate the terrain and what that would give you on the trainer. So here we are going downhill, meaning that you're going faster. You can turn the pedals over a little bit faster, a little bit less resistance on the pedals. And here it flattens out a little bit. So take it back to your 15. And let's get back into your rhythm. Nice steady effort. Get down to your aero bars, down on your drops. Not a lot of super technical areas on this course in terms of turning. Now, there are a lot of technical areas in terms of rolling hills, and there are strategies that you can use to get over those hills more effectively. The really strong cyclist on this course will be shifting constantly, trying to dial in that sweet spot cadence and also leveraging their momentum to help carry them over some of these small rollers. And knowledge of the course is really important when it comes to that. Knowing when the rollers are happening, when you can attack a downhill, for example, to gain more momentum to go up the other side. Little things like that make a big difference in your bike split. So again, knowing the course is key and critical. Pothole up here, watch out for that. There you go. And keep it steady. Keep that same gearing, shift gearing a little bit if you want, but I just want that output to be very similar. That's the key here. Cadence in that mid 80 RPM range. You know, I make suggestions of gearing just to give you a general idea where you might want to consider being. It's up to you to try to dial in the right gearing to give you that level of required output that's going to bring about the adaptation to this kind of racing stress. So that's aerobic endurance intensity, zone 3. Just keep that in mind. Change gears as you will. Even on the flats, once in a while on race day, you want to stand up. Good rule of thumb, every 10 or 15 minutes, stand up, even if you don't have to, just to stretch your legs out, stretch your lower back out, because you've got such a long day ahead of you. Keep it steady, keep it steady. Knees in your top tube, upper body's nice and relaxed. You see these rollers heading downhill now. So good strategy here. See how that roller, you can probably use your momentum to carry over this. Attack this little roller, this downhill. Use your momentum to take you over the top here. Perfect. There you go. That's how you do it. Good stuff. Another downhill here. So maintain that power output. Going over top, here we go. Maybe pick it up a little bit. Go to a slightly easier gear so you can bring your cadence up. Again, we're trying to simulate what you'll experience out there on the road. So your cadence is up, cadence is up. Now, on race day, you might just want to take a little bit of that hill and conserve your energy, not even pedal, relax a little bit, and then you get back into your rhythm. But as you can see, you have a little bit of a climb, so another strategy might be to take that hill with some higher effort, use your momentum to carry you up this hill as far as you can before shifting to an easier gear. So lots of different ways, and really good cyclists will employ several different methods and strategies to help them get over a rolling hilly course effectively. Steady effort. Looks like we're climbing a little bit, so let's go to a slightly harder gear. Big chain ring on the front, maybe around your 13 on the back. Your spinner bike resistance on about a 4. Climb this little grade. You can see Dale's working a little bit harder here, but still doing a good job in keeping his cadence high. That's important. You don't want to get bogged down in that 60, 70 RPM range. Use too much muscle tension at that time. And if you do that, it's really going to come back to haunt you in the run when you're really fatigued. Back to your 15 on the back, big chain ring 15. Bring that cadence back up a little bit in that mid 80 RPM range. Your intensity 75 to 80 on that intensity scale. Climbing hill again here a little bit. Shift to a slightly harder gear. Cadence will drop a little bit again. Not a lot, because I want you to maintain a steady effort. Maintain that steady output. We're going to be turning right up here on junction 393. Back to your 15 on the back, big chain ring 15. Right turn coming up.
Here we are, we just made a right turn on 393, and this is the loop. So you're gonna end up doing this loop 2 times during the race, and it's a challenging loop. There's a lot of hills here, so you need to be mentally prepared for that. The loop is roughly, what do you say, Dale, about 30 miles? 30 miles or so. So have that in the back of your head as you're about ready to do it. At this point, make sure you're hydrating well, you know, somewhere around 40 to 60 fluid ounces every hour would probably be wise. Make sure you're taking in your calories too, somewhere in that range of, say, around 250, 300 calories an hour, and even a little bit more if you're a heavier athlete. All right, you guys ready to go? Let's roll.
Okay, we're rolling out again. You got a little break there, so let's get back into it. Small chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. We'll just roll into it, get the legs moving, get the blood flowing. Hopefully you took something to drink there. You're feeling strong as we head off on the loop. As I mentioned, we're going to be on race day, we're going to be doing this loop twice. We're only going to be doing it 1 time for the purpose of this video ride. But certainly you could go back to this point and start over and do this loop again if you want that realistic feel of the course. And then to finish up, you just head right back in as we came out on State Road 42 and then back to River Road. So right now let's go into big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and your spinner bike resistance. Let's look for a resistance level of 3. So nice steady effort. Let's get back into our training rhythm. Cadence in the mid 80 RPM range. Get that power back up there. Remember, we're looking for a zone 3 effort, aerobic endurance. Steady state, nothing too hard. Never burning our matches by going anaerobic. Keep it steady. A little bit of a grade here, so if you want to shift to a slightly harder gear to simulate this slight uphill climb, you can do that. Otherwise, you can keep it where you are. Stay on Dale's wheel here as we climb this little hill. Road's in pretty good shape for the most part. You can see some potholes here and there, but not bad. Roads are narrow, country roads, so always be careful when you're out there riding with your friends for training camp or whatever it might be. Heading downhill now, so if you want to go to a slightly easier gear, you can shift to that. Maybe a spinner bike resistance of about a 2. Get that cadence up. You can see we're freewheeling down this road, but it kicks back up again. So stay in your rhythm. I would suggest that you just stay in that rhythm, basically in that steady state, zone 3 effort, power output. well below your functional threshold power. Just get into a rhythm. Think about your good form at all times. Keep your knees in your top tube, upper body's nice and relaxed. And if you're on your tri bike, practice being in that aero position. Get down those aero bars and get used to that. Heading downhill here a little bit again. Car up. So go to a slightly easier gear again. Bring that cadence up maybe 5 RPMs or so. Looking good, looking good. Looks like it flattens out a little bit here, so take it back to your 15, and then you can see up ahead we have a little bit of a grade, a little bit of a climb. So let's shift to a slightly higher resistance. Take it down to maybe your 13 or so on the back. Crank up that resistance on that spinner bike to about a 3, maybe even a 4. We have a little bit of a climb here. If you need to stand up a little bit here, go ahead and do that. Stretch the legs out. We're going to stay seated in the video, but if you need to, stand up and stretch it out. You can see our speed really drops, which means the climb must be fairly steep. That white pickup truck got a little bit too close to us, I think, but one of the hazards of riding your bike on the road. That's why you got to wear your helmet. And when you're riding with other riders, especially on these narrow roads, you ride in single file. Try not to go too abreast unless you know you can. Still climbing here, so you're in your big chain ring on the front. I'm pulling off a little bit, letting someone come through. Take the lead for a second. Cadence might be dropped a little bit. Maintain that steady power output as we climb this hill. Slight grade. Looks like kind of a false flat. Keep it steady. Keep that cadence in that 80 RPM range. Let's not get bogged down with that really big gear inch and super low cadence. That won't do you any good for race day. Just practice keeping that cadence up. Good, good, good. Keep your knees in your top tube. Maintain that rhythm. Looks like a school bus is coming up. Still climbing, still climbing, still climbing. Keep it steady, keep it steady, keep it steady. What a great day to ride. Nice and sunny out. A few clouds out there. A little bit of shade here and there. Okay, now it looks like we're heading back downhill, so shift to a slightly easier gear inch, maybe your 15 or 17 on the back. Get that cadence back up a little bit as we go down this hill. And get down your aerodynamic tuck. Bring that cadence up, 85 to say 90 RPM range. Maintain that very similar power output. If you're using a power meter, you can really dial in your power range based on your zones. So if you know your functional threshold power, you should be well below that for this kind of ride, this long endurance ride. Heading downhill here. Freewheeling a little bit. So let's go back to big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, get back into a rhythm. You might have never have gotten out of that rhythm, which is fine too. Get back in your rhythm. You can see up ahead, you have some downhill, you have some uphill, again, lots of rollers around here. Lots of rollers. Watch out for this car on the right. Thank you. Car up. Heading uphill here, so go to a slightly harder gear. Keep that cadence steady. You can see the athletes are riding a little bit harder right now. And now it's flattening out, and they'll be heading back down here in a bit. So goes to a slightly easier gear and bring that cadence back up again. Your effort, that intensity scale, between 75 and 80%. So you're working moderately hard. That's how we're going to describe your output, moderately hard, for this aerobic endurance ride. If you do this ride properly, do it the right way, you're going to be tired. You're going to get fatigued by the end. So make sure that you schedule this ride, sandwich it between perhaps a recovery day or an easier aerobic day the day before, and then a recovery day the day after, so that you have the ability to really bounce back and adapt to the training stress of this aerobic endurance ride. Too many times people will go into an aerobic endurance ride with tired legs and they won't get the maximum benefit out of it, or they follow up an aerobic endurance ride with a hard day and they can never produce the kind of power output or have the kind of quality on that hard day to really get the maximum benefit. So it's important to fit this into your schedule in the right way. And another mistake I see a lot of age group athletes making is they make too many days aerobic endurance rides, or those zone 3 rides. In other words, every day is that moderately hard effort where you're never really taking it to that next level. I call that gray zone training. Gray zone training will get you fit. However, it won't allow you to break through your plateaus. And oftentimes people who train in the gray zone all the time can never really take it up to that next level on race day. And their quality workouts are never great, and they're always tired because they're always working moderately hard. You've got to have that distinction, that differentiation between your hard days and your easy days. And again, this is a moderately hard day. So keep it in the big chain ring on the front, 15 or so on the back as you're on your trainer, level 2 or 3 right now on your spinner bike, and keep that cadence in that mid-80 RPM range. I'm pulling off here, heading to the back of the pack, so I can take a little bit of a break. Maintain that rhythm. You can see we're going over some rollers here. We're using our momentum, going up over this roller, and here we come down the other side of it. It's going downhill. Everyone's doing a nice job here. Everyone's got a good cadence. Going downhill again, slight roller, and then we're heading back up. So I recommend again that you maintain that effort, that steady state effort, big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and that spinner bike resistance on 2 or 3, cadence in that mid-80 RPM range. Heading uphill here. This is a slight hill, so if you want to go to your slightly higher resistance, Why don't you shift to that, go down one cog, and then also crank up that resistance knob a little bit, and perhaps your cadence drops ever so slightly. And if you want to stand up here, stretch your legs out, now would be a good time. Looking strong, looking strong. Keep it steady, keep it steady, keep it steady, keep it steady. Still climbing, still climbing, still climbing. Stay attached to the wheel up in front. There's a sign there for Lagrange, and that's where we're headed. So get ready to make a left up here. Heading east, making a left turn. Doing your big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, just maintaining a steady cadence. Okay, still rolling along here in a steady state effort. Big chain ring on the front, somewhere around your 15 on the back. Just giving you a vantage point of the road. What you'll be seeing out there actually on the course. This is, there's continuity here, just so you're aware. So basically you're seeing every stretch of the course. Okay, nice job here. Nice job. Keep it steady. Maintain that same effort, and that means cadence in the mid 80 RPM range. Again, a little bit of a narrow road with lots of traffic on this road. A little bit of a false flat here. You can see the wind kicking up. See all the weeds on the right side there? The wind's kicking up a little bit. So again, be prepared for that possibility of it being a windy day. As we ride along, big chain ring on the front, somewhere around your 15 on the back. You can see the cadences are dropping ever so slightly. The athletes are freewheeling a little bit, so sitting in on the wheel. So this is a vantage point you would get if you were in the lead of the race, no one in front of you. Again, you can see the windy day, the wind really kicking up here. Those winds can create a problem for every athlete unless they're at your back. Wouldn't that be nice to ride with a nice stiff 30-mile-per-hour wind at your back, pushing you along? That might happen sometimes, but remember, a crosswind can affect you very similar to the way a headwind affects you. So keep that in mind. Okay, we're back with the riders again. Keep it steady on kind of a flat stretch of road here. Lots of traffic. It's one of the reasons we're cutting back and forth as the car cam following the riders gets stuck in some of the traffic at times. So, but remember, there is continuity. We do have continuity in this workout, so you can see every stretch of the course. Keep it steady. Keep that cadence up. Cadence still in the mid-80 RPM range. And let's not get bored. Let's maintain our focus, maintain our attention. Stay focused on your effort. Stay focused on your cadence and your power output. And I haven't reminded you for a while now, but you have to remember to drink and eat on those regularly scheduled intervals so that you have plenty of energy to get through this ride, because we still have quite a ways to go for this workout. And then, of course, if you're doing the race, you've got a real long way to go. Race just started, in fact, but you've already burned through probably well over 1,500 calories. Well, more than that, because you already swam 2.4 miles and you've already been on the bike for over an hour and a half. And if you haven't managed your nutrition properly to this point, then you're already in a deficit. So keep that in mind. View of the road without the riders. Just keep your effort steady. Big chain ring on the front, 15 or so on the back. Keep the cadence up in the mid-80s. Keep it steady now. Back with the riders again. Sitting in that pace line. Get down your aero bars, down on your drops, because you can see the wind kicking up. So the more aero you can be, the better off you'll be. You can see that wind really kicking around those weeds on the right side. See, Carrie has a pretty high cadence here. She's keeping her cadence up. Town of LaGrange. A lot of spectators for the race come to this area to watch the riders. Always gives the riders a nice boost of energy when they can get a little bit down as fatigue starts to set in, mental and physical fatigue. When you see people out there cheering you on, it just adds a little bit of a kick to your pedal stroke. So it's always nice to see the crowds gather at these events. And take advantage of that. Really take advantage of it. Let it push you through some of the hard spots out there. It's interesting, you always have to keep in mind that when you're out there by yourself on race day, you have so many different emotions and so many ways that you feel. Sometimes you feel great, sometimes you feel horrible, because it is such a long day. It's amazing how such a little thing like seeing other people out on the course cheering you on can elevate your mood. Riding along, still in your big chain ring, 15 on the back. Just keep it steady. Not a whole lot to look at right here, but it's part of the mental drill, the mental toughness drill of keeping your interest high without a lot of distraction. Keeping your focus on your effort. Look down at your power meter right now. Look down at your heart rate monitor. Look down at your cadence meters. Where's your cadence? Back to the riders. Keeping the cadence up, mid-80s. Looks like we're coming into town here. Heading downhill, so if you want to go to a slightly easier gear inch and bring that cadence up, you can do that. Maybe 85 to 90 RPMs, somewhere in that range, as we freewheel down this hill. Stand up a little bit if you have to, stretch the legs out. You know, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but every 15 minutes or so, you should stand up to stretch it out. Even if it was a totally flat course, it would still be a good idea to stand up, stretch your legs out, stretch your lower back out. Back to the car cam. Again, there is continuity in this, so you get a sense of what the entire course looks like. We just lost the riders here for a minute or two, but you should still be in your big chain ring on the front and 15 on the back and maintaining that effort and that output as we ride through town for a little bit here. At this point in the race, you know, you're getting a little bit fatigued because you've been out there for a few hours in total, including the swim. And you're starting to get fatigued, and you really need to make sure you're checking and monitoring your gauges. You know, hopefully you've disciplined yourself not to go too hard at the beginning of the race, and you're feeling pretty good right now. Keeping in mind that you still have this whole loop to do again, not to mention the ride back into downtown Louisville to the transition area. Keep it steady. Coming up to a stop sign here. So if you want to soft pedal a little bit, recover a little bit, that would be fine. Take a drink, get some fluids. Watch out for these cars. And we're back on the road. So small chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Let's get your cadence up. Get back into your rhythm. You can see the road up ahead, a little bit of roller, downhill on the flats. So we're just rolling along here, and we'll resume with the riders here in a little bit. Again, during the videotaping of this, we have some difficulties at times with traffic and can't always maintain contact with the riders when we get into busy areas of town. Riding along here, you can see how the road snakes around. It's fairly flat. Here we are back with the riders. So now let's go to your big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. And let's stay down on those aero bars. Get in that aero position. Again, we're back into our rhythm now. So let's get back into our rhythm. Try to keep it nice and steady. Get that cadence up at that mid 80 RPM range. Somewhere around 85 would be fantastic. And you can see the road up ahead. A little bit of rolling and good pavement for the most part, but those narrow country roads. So you got to be careful out there. A little bit of an uphill grade, so go to a slightly harder gear inch if you'd like, and let the cadence drop, but maintain a very similar power output, maybe within 20 watts or so. If you can dial it into that kind of range, that'd be great. To have that discipline would be something you should develop. And we're heading back downhill here. Of course, that's harder to do on the road than it is on the trainer. That's one of the beauties of being on a trainer. You can really dial in your output and get a perfect workout in almost. You know, you can look at your power data, your power file after the workout, and really see clean lines, which is nice. You don't see as much of that when you're on the road, which isn't really a problem, but it just shows you the efficiency that indoor training has to offer, especially if you're using a power meter and a heart rate monitor or a heart rate monitor. And we're still riding along here, big chain ring on the front, somewhere around your 15 on the back, and your resistance level on about a 3 on your spinner bike. Your output, you're between 75 and 80%. Again, this is a zone 3 or aerobic endurance type workout. We started this workout with a nice warm-up heading out of town, just as you will during the course, the race itself. And then throughout the workout, we've been just maintaining that steady state effort where you're working moderately hard, below your anaerobic threshold, being very careful not to burn through your matches. Riding steady, and then we'll resume again with the riders here in a bit. Just don't get bored. Don't get bored. Stay with me here. Stay with me. Still have a ways to go. Make sure you drink some fluids. Make sure you're taking in your doses, you know, that every 10 or 15 minutes or whatever it might be, you're going to be consuming some fluid, consuming some calorie. Fluid is dependent on your sweat rate, your body weight, as is your calorie intake in terms of body weight. Keep in mind, as I said earlier, most people are looking somewhere between 200 and say 300 calories per hour to sustain that high energy level. And those calories, well, they can come from all kinds of different sources. You know, they have a lot of good sports products out there, sports nutritionals, gel products, all kinds of different things. Chews, sports drink. Some people can't stomach those. Some people want to stick with food products, bananas, say as an example, Fig Newtons. Some people like Tootsie Rolls out on rides, gummy bears. All kinds of things you can eat out there. And you know what? There's no right way to do it, really. I mean, it's all personal preference. As long as you're getting in the right kind of calories for your own personal taste and your tolerance, your own personal tolerance that will sustain your energy, you're doing okay. You don't want to have really complex calories in your gut. That's one thing I will say. You have to be careful that they are calories that you can digest and absorb easily. So you need to figure out what those are during your training. But pretty much everything works. I've seen really great athletes eat little sandwiches out there with ham, cheese. That's what they need. That's what they want. And it's what makes them effective out there on the race course. Keep in mind, too, this is a long day. So the bike is where you really want to make sure you're maximizing your nutrition, because you're going to be able to digest and absorb easier on the bike than on the run, because by the time you hit the run, your digestive system is in a state of disarray. You've been out there for a long time. Your body's getting dehydrated just by default. No matter how well you think you're hydrating, you're on a downward curve in many ways when you're doing this kind of race, if you're really pushing yourself, especially going for that personal best. So if you can maximize your nutrition on the bike, you're going to be a lot better prepared for the run in every case. If you try to wait or you don't take in enough on the bike, then you're going to have a difficult time on the run. That's what makes this kind of racing so interesting, because it's hard to get it perfect, Sometimes you do. Once in a while, people get it just right, and they have that incredible race. But most people are always trying to figure it out, what works best, and they tweak their game. Keep coming back to try to do it a little bit better, try to get a little bit faster, try to figure out how much to drink, how much to eat, how not to get those cramps, how not to get a bloated stomach. And it's all a personal experiment of one. You can see the winds here kicking up a little bit, so keep that again in mind. It can be windy out there. Windy, hot, and humid can be fairly typical conditions. But that nutrition piece to long course triathlon racing is just critical. I always say that it's basically 33% of your success at long course racing, iron distance racing, ultra distance racing, whatever you want to call it, is directly related to your nutrition. You can be the best athlete in the world. You can be so well prepared, but if you don't hit your nutrition just right, you can forget about it, as Tony Soprano would say. Car right. Maintaining steady pace, still in your big chain ring and around your 15 on the back, and you can modify that a little bit. But I want to keep your cadence in that mid 80 RPM range and your effort 75 to 80%. Keep it steady, aerobic endurance. Ride along here with us. My feeling, and I've said this in other videos like this in the past, and if you've ever come to one of our training camps, you've heard me say this, but I think after you've done about 3 to 5 Ironman distance events, you kind of get the hang of it. You kind of figure out, or begin to figure out at least, what you need to do personally to get through the race as fast as possible. When you've had that much experience at the distance, then you're really starting to get the hang of it. So, like anything, the more experience you have, the better you're going to do. You got to pay the price, though, that's for sure. You got to pay the price in terms of getting the training in, making sure you're getting in those aerobic endurance miles, building your base, but also doing a little bit of quality work, too, even for the iron distance. Some of that tempo training, especially. You've got to build that anaerobic threshold, build that ceiling. The well-rounded athlete's going to be a much better racer. And we're seeing a lot of that as we get into 2010. We're seeing a lot of short course triathletes move on to ultra distance racing, and we're seeing them they're very effective. They've got this great speed base, and then they come into ultra distance racing with that incredible speed. And we're seeing the quality of these ultra distance races taking a step up over what they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, for sure. But it all comes back to having that foundation and then building on that foundation for this long course racing. So keep it steady. Looks like we're making a left turn up here. Left turn. Taking up the road. Hopefully there are no cars behind us. Left turn up ahead. It looks like this is Ballard School Road. So we're slowing down a little bit. You can soft pedal through here. And here we go. Heading back off. Okay, now these roads, we're on a stretch of road, and we're on to several roads here actually that I think are more enjoyable. There's not as much traffic, and these are your typical country roads, really rolling, but a little bit, they're very scenic, and you don't have to worry as much about the vehicular traffic. But let's keep it steady. Let's be in your small chain ring 15 as we have a little bit of a recovery here. Back it off a little bit, freewheel a little bit if you'd like. As we go downhill, you can see we're freewheeling downhill. So let's let the legs recover. That's Dale's cam right behind me. And here's the car cam behind our group. Strong riders. They all did a great job. And we're climbing a little bit now. So let's go to your big chain ring on the front, around your 13 on the back. Watch out for this red truck. Thank you, sir. And we're climbing this little grade, and this is a fairly steep grade, in fact, so if you want to, go down to your 12 on the back and stand up. You can see the riders are working hard here, so why don't you stand up a little bit, really push it over this steep little section, and if you'd like to stay seated, that's fine, but use your entire pedal stroke. Here we go. Now your power output might spike a little bit, but I don't want you to burn a match, okay? Keep it steady. If you need to, go to a really easy gear inch, or I'm sorry, a harder gear inch, but if you're actually on the course, on the road, you might go to your small chain ring on the front all the way up to your 25 on the back to keep your cadence up and to keep your power output steady. See this little climb, these short little rollers can really beat you up. And if you hit them too hard, you can burn a match on each one, so you need to be careful on these. Keep that steady rhythm. Sometimes you need to stand up on those really short, steep hills. It's a good skill set to have, to learn how to stand up quickly, transition to being in a standing position on the bike, and then right back down. So here we're going downhill. You can freewheel a little bit, soft pedal a little bit there on the trainer. See, I'm shifting gears, trying to find the right gears. We go over these rollers. Looks like we have a little bit of a climb here again. So big chain ring, let's say 15 on the back to try to simulate the kind of resistance you get going up this slight little climb. Back to our car cam. See all our riders, and you can see the road up ahead kicking up, and you can see the wind blowing the weeds on the right side. So let's keep it steady, big chain ring on the front. Because we're climbing, you might be off the aero bars right now because we're not going very fast. So, when you're not going hard, or fast rather, you can be off the aero bars. Some people prefer to be down in that position. They just feel better, and that's okay. That's okay too, for sure. But let's keep that cadence up in that mid 85 or so RPM range. Your effort continues to be moderate. Maybe you kick the effort up a little bit as we make these little climbs. Maybe you stand up as well. Looks like we're cresting, and then we're going down the other side. There we go. And you can freewheel a little bit. You can soft pedal a little bit here as we're doing. Let the heart rate recover ever so slightly. We're rolling downhill pretty quickly here. So small chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and soft pedal. Probably going about 30 miles per hour down this hill. Car's having a hard time keeping up with us. Yeehaw! Gotta love the downhills. Of course, with every downhill, there's an uphill. It's the way it goes. And those uphills, that's where it all comes back to power to weight ratio. you know? It's all about your power to weight ratio, this kind of course where you have a lot of rollers. So we're standing up. You can see the rider standing up. So go to a slightly harder gear inch, and then here we are going back downhill again. So it's all about using your momentum and carrying yourself over these short little hills. And that's why knowing the course is so important, because if you know the course, you know how to attack these rollers. And if you can attack the rollers, you'll make up a lot of time on the bike. But we're staying steady. Let's go to your big chain ring 15 on the back. Resistance on that spinner bike at a 2 or 3. We're just cruising along here, cruising along. Steady effort. So I was saying earlier, 33% is nutrition. Well, the other third would be your physical preparation. You know, you've got to put in the time, the miles, and commit to the training for ultra distance racing, which is of course very important. But you also need to focus on the mental component of ultra distance racing. That is huge. And that's why doing trainer work like you're doing now, where you're out on the trainer, maybe in your basement, your training dungeon, as I like to call it. It might be difficult mentally, but if you can make yourself do that during the cold winter months or even during the summer, when you want to get those quality workouts in, and test yourself mentally and basically condition yourself mentally to at times be bored but be able to work through it, and to be able to stay focused when you might be bored to tears. That's really important. It's an important part of racing, developing your mental toughness and that ability to focus. Athletes who do that effectively are definitely the better athletes, and they're going to be able to compete at a much higher level. So nutrition, physical component, and then the mental component. You balance all three of those, and you've got yourself a well-rounded athlete who can participate very effectively in long-distance endurance sports. We call those the 3 legs of the table. You knock one of those legs off or out, table falls over. Okay, we're rolling downhill pretty quickly here, so if you want to take it to an easier gear inch and bring your cadence up in that low 90 RPM range, why don't you do that now? You can see the road up ahead is tipping down. Beautiful scenery here, way out in the country. Coming up to a stop sign, and it looks like we're going to make a right here on Old Sligo Road. And of course you can refer to the map, the course map for this event. Right turn. Dale's helmet cam. Back to the car cam. Let's keep it steady. Stand up a little bit of a grade. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. That's it. Stay on the wheel, stay on the wheel. Nice job, nice job. Stay steady. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. We're kind of gathering ourselves here, but let's maintain your effort as a steady effort there on the trainer. Dale apparently needed a breather, so he hopped on Courtney's wheel. Just kidding there, Dale. So we're heading downhill now. Let's get that cadence up. Get that cadence up. And here's a nice little roller for you. So you take your momentum, let your momentum carry over the roller, and then you're back over the top and going back down again. So keeping the big chain ring 15, that spinner bike resistance on that level 2 or 3. Looks like we're climbing a little bit here, so click it down to a slightly harder resistance or shift to a slightly harder gear inch. But let's keep that cadence in that 80 RPM range, low to mid 80s right about now. Doing a nice job. Nice job, and don't forget to eat, don't forget to drink. Have that watch set so it beeps every 10 to 15 minutes or so as a reminder. And we're rolling up to a little steep hill here. So let's take it down to your 13 on the back, big chain ring 13, as we climb this hill. And you can stand up if you'd like, because you can see this is a tough little climb. There you go. As the riders kick it over, strong riders. Everyone kicks it over nice and strong. Crest, and then you come down the other side. Keep it going, keep it going, keep that momentum, get all the way to the top. There you go. Nice. Well done, well done. And you can go to a slightly easier gear now as we come down the other side. And you can soft pedal a little bit. Once you soft pedal a little bit, you can take it down your small chain ring on the front as we freewheel down this hill. We're going pretty fast. Looks like we're going around 30, 35 miles per hour. You're just soft pedaling right now and letting your legs recover, letting the heart rate come down a little bit, taking a drink of fluid, maybe taking in a few calories, because we are going to start working again here shortly, and we want you to be ready for it. So let's do that right now. Let's go to the big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Get back into a little bit more of a rhythm. That moderately hard zone 3 effort that you've been doing. Let's get back into that. You can see there Dale took a swig, putting his aero bottle back. Here we go, up a little bit of a climb. Keep that cadence nice and steady, use your momentum. Keep it steady, keep it steady. Heading through the first loop. The first loop, again, on race day, you have to do this loop twice. So you certainly don't want to overcook the first loop. Because right now, you're still going to feel pretty good on race day. You know, you've been riding for a couple hours, over a couple hours, but you should be feeling pretty good. You tend to forget that you still have another 3 to 4 to 5 hours or more to go. And we're coming up on a right turn here. Here's our right turn. Now this is a really beautiful section of the course, going through these horse farms. Nice roads, hardly any traffic. Really fast, sweeping descents. Really nice. You can see we're going pretty fast. So go to your big chain ring on the front, take it up to maybe your 17 on the back, lower that resistance knob on your spinner bike, and let's just really get some nice fast pedal action here, maybe around 90 RPMs. Let those legs go a little bit. You can see we're pedaling pretty quickly here while we're going pretty fast too. Keep it nice and steady. Effort level, still the same. Just keeping that steady state, 75 to 80%. We're not burning through our matches, we're keeping it steady. Nice job, nice job, nice job. Try Got to get down those aero bars, down on those drops. Get in that aerodynamic position. You're going to go faster and use less energy in doing so, especially at these speeds, because we're probably going over 20 miles per hour right now. So get down in those aero bars. Car up. See, it's a nice stretch of road here. Keep that cadence up. Still in the big chain ring, and you can play around there. You should be around the 15 or middle of that rear sprocket cluster or thereabout. But you can play around with that, so you're either pedaling a little bit faster or a little bit slower, depending on the perception of the terrain here. It looks like we're on the flat or maybe climbing ever so slightly. But you can see our cadences are still nice and high. You can see I'm up front there, probably around that 83, 85 cadence range. Now look up ahead. Looks like it's a lot of downhill coming up. So get ready for that. So why don't you shift up to your 17 on the back, and or perhaps even the 19, and bring that cadence up nice and high. Watch out for that van. And nice sweeping downhill here. A little bit of a roller, but we can take our momentum over that roller. And right back down. Look at this. Beautiful.
Nice fast stretch here. A few steep hills with short hills back there. That's when you go into that easier gear and you just spin right up. Or sometimes you can get out of the saddle in a big gear and really use your momentum, stand up, and crest those hills. Right now we're in a nice rhythm, and we're getting close to the end of the first loop, and I think about 15 or so miles. So remember, hydrate, take in your calories, and you'll be good to go.
You'll be good to go. So keep on riding. Just cruising along on this beautiful day in Louisville, Kentucky. Still in that big chain ring on the front, around your 15 on the back. And just keeping it nice and steady here. Looks like we're climbing ever so slightly, so if you want to shift to a slightly harder gear, maybe go down to about your 13 to mix it up a little bit. And maybe even stand up if you want, just to stretch the legs out about now. Riders here, we're all staying seated, keeping that cadence up, but you can see we're shifting. There's some shifting going on, so this grade is definitely kicking the legs a little bit. There we go, and somebody's standing up. You can stand up as well. Stretch the legs out, stretch the lower back out. Heading downhill again, so you can go to a slightly easier gear. Get the cadence up. And looks like a climb up ahead, so let's go to that harder gear. And looks like you might have to stand up again if you'd like. There you go. Looks like I'm standing up at the front there, putting in a little bit of a surge. Keep it steady right up this hill. Big chain ring on the front, probably about your 13 on the back, and then right back down. You crest the hill hard, let your momentum carry you over, and then you can glide down the other side. There you go. Good. Keep it steady now. You're going downhill. If you'd like to soft pedal, go to your small chain ring on the front and do a little bit of recovery by soft pedaling. That would be fine. And here you see the rolling effect. So we're heading back uphill again. So go back to your big chain ring on the front and around your 15 on the back. Let's keep that cadence nice and steady. Remember, on this kind of training effort, this kind of race course, you never want to be a hero. You never want to be a hero. It's all about keeping it steady. So if you have somebody who goes blowing by you on one of these uphills, most likely they burned a match, and most likely you're going to see them later on in the race, so keep that in mind. Keep it steady. Coming up to a stop sign, and we're making a left turn. Left turn. Looks like left on Highway 153. Taking a little break here, so if you'd like to, go to your small chain ring on the front and soft pedal while we're waiting for that truck to go by. Soft pedal a little bit, take a drink. Clear right, clear left, and go. Catch up to us. Okay, time to get back into some rhythm. So you're in your small chain ring right now, so get that cadence up, get it rolling, and let's get right back into our steady rhythm. Looks like there's some traffic on this road, so let's be careful out here. Let's go to your big chain ring on the front, and again, your 15 on the back, that moderate effort. Start cranking it out again. Let's get down in those aero bars, down on those drops. Let's get aero. Looks like a pretty fast stretch of road here. Flat to rolling again. Road's in good shape, which is nice. Always nice to have smooth road. But there is some traffic out here. Speed limit's probably about 55 miles per hour, as you can see. So this is definitely a road you want to ride single file for the most part, unless there's no one coming. So get down in those aero bars. Big chain ring 15, steady moderate effort, 75 to 80%. Take in some fluids, take in some nutrition. At this point in the race, you're starting to get tired. There's no question about it. You've been on this bike for a while. You've been out of the water for a while. You're starting to get tired, again, mentally and physically. And you got to beat back any negative thoughts that are going through your head at this point. It's all about prevention, though. If you're feeling overly tired, you could have prevented that by going out a little bit easier and strategizing a little bit more effectively, perhaps, with your nutrition. So really think about how you're going to feel later on in the race. Whenever you get that notion to start pushing the pace really hard, or you think, wow, I've got to make up time. Well, at this distance, that can really come back to haunt you later on in the race. So you've got to maintain that steady effort. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and you're just pedaling along at that steady pace. Cadence in the mid 80 range. Hopefully your nutrition leading up to this workout was really solid. Your diet is full of quality protein, and you've got an adequate amount of carbohydrate in your diet, fueling your performance. So you went into the start of this ride, this workout in particular, fully hydrated, your energy level's high, and you're feeling pretty strong because you've been maintaining those energy levels with good nutrition. Looks like there's a truck coming up. Steady state effort, big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Spinner bike resistance on that scale of 3. Keep it steady. Keep it steady here. Lots of trucks on this road, it seems. Lots of cars on this road, for that matter. Staying down on your aero bars, down on your drops, nice and narrow, because this is a pretty fast section, so I would guess that the riders right now are around 20 miles per hour. Nice steady state effort, and again, once you're up in those speeds, up in speeds above 18 miles per hour, aerodynamics plays a more important role. You want to make sure you're getting low. Now look at that wind. You can see the trees there are really blowing hard. So there's definitely some wind out there on this day. Could be out there on race day as well. Sligo. Looks like we're making a left turn up ahead. Sign said to Louisville. Soft pedaling a little bit here. Looks like Route 42. And here we go. Right back into our rhythm. Let's go to your big chain ring on the front again, your 15 on the back. As this road would take you right back into Louisville and the transition area. As you can see, it's Route 42. So the first loop, we're on that last stretch of the first loop, and if you'd like, you could always back up or go to the beginning of this loop and do that loop once again. Our ride will be over at the end of this first loop, but of course on race day you'll need to take it all the way back in town to Louisville and back to the transition area. But for the purpose of this training effort, we're not going to do that. It's certainly something that is a good experience, because one experience you might have heading back into town is there is a lot of headwind, especially there on River Road as you head back into town. Even though it's flat, if you get a stiff headwind there, it can really serve to beat you up at that late stage in the race. So just be mentally prepared for that. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, and we're nice and steady here. Nice and steady. You can see the wind blowing. Maintain that steady, moderate effort, 75 to 80%. Keep that cadence up in that 80 RPM range, upwards of 85 RPMs. Try to stay down on those aero bars. Think of your good form, your knees in your top tube, upper body's relaxed. All these important things that will help you be a better rider. You need to stand up, stand up. Stretch your legs out, stretch your lower back out. Other reminders: hydrate, calories, maintain your focus. Just rolling along here. It looks like we're going pretty fast, so a little bit of a downhill section. This road is definitely rolling. You can see there again, Route 42. Definitely a rolling road. Some of it's nicely paved. Some of it's beat up a little bit, but it's not that bad. Fairly heavy vehicle traffic, but not incredibly bad compared to some of the other roads we've been on today. So just watch out as always, and you'll be fine. Keep it steady, big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Keep that cadence up. Keep it nice and steady. We're in about the last 30 minutes or so for this workout. So that's good news to many of you, I'm sure. Now, of course, if you're out there on race day, you're not even halfway through the bike. Keep it steady here, keep that cadence up, and don't get bored. Don't let your mind start wandering. Look at your cadence meter. Where's your cadence right now? Look at your gearing, make sure you're in the right gearing. Look at your heart rate monitor, make sure your heart rate's at that zone 3 range. Look at your power meter, make sure your power is where it needs to be. Watch out for that truck. See up ahead, little rollers along here where you can get into a rhythm, but then you're out of your rhythm. So, be aware of these rollers. And some you can attack, and some you can carry your momentum over the top. Others you can't do that. But just don't burn your matches. Don't be a superstar out here on these rollers. Try to crank out 450 watts over some of them. Every time you do that for 10 seconds or more, you could burn a match, depending on your fitness. Now, the top pros in this race, well, they're a different story. In fact, they're a different level, of course, and they do this stuff professionally. But some of these top pros will be able to average 270, 300 watts in that range for the entire course, which is just phenomenal, just amazing. And on top of that, you put the fact that they are fairly lightweight, so their power to weight ratio is just incredibly high. And positioning wise on the bike, they're very aerodynamic, and they go through wind tunnel testing and different things like that. So they're very efficient in terms of offering frontal resistance. That combined with an exceptional power to weight ratio, they go really fast. Bottom line, they go really fast. And then they hop off the bike and they can run a sub 3 hour marathon. Now, it's impressive, very impressive. It's impressive what the human body is capable of doing. So here we are going up a hill a little bit, so go to a slightly harder gear if you'd like. Stand up a little bit if you'd like. Looks like we're cresting and then we'll be going downhill. You're sitting on Dale's wheel. Doing a good job. Keep it nice and steady here, nice and steady. We got lucky with a beautiful day. Beautiful summer day in Louisville, Kentucky. Again, you're still in your big chain ring on the front and around your 15 on the back, keeping that cadence nice and steady. Stay down on those aero bars, stay down on those drops. Get yourself aero. So if you have a chance, please come out and attend one of our training camps. We do have one in Louisville. Again, it's roughly 4 to 6 weeks out from race day. And it's a fun experience. We have a good time. 4th Street Live is down there. We have some good times, good dinners, great training, fun people, some good lectures about training and racing. So hopefully you can join us and attend one of our camps. We also have several other camps around the country. One of my personal favorites is our winter training camp in Tucson, Arizona, every March. Great opportunity to put in some good base miles on the bike and on the run and get ready for the season with rides on Oracle, over Gates Pass, and of course up Mount Lemmon. So just a really great training camp experience overall. Hope you can enjoy someday. So be sure to check out my website, coachtroy.com, or spinnerbles.com for more information about our training camps. But let's get back to our ride here and let's focus on our effort and our output and everything else going on. So aero bars, big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back, resistance on your spinner bike at around a 2 or 3. Keep that cadence up in that mid 80 RPM range. You can see the course here. We're going downhill a little bit, but you can see it's rolling. I mean, there's no other way to describe this course but rolling. There are no really super severe climbs as in some of the other race courses throughout the country. Just rolling, and that beats you up enough, believe me. The rolling courses can do some damage, especially if you're not prepared for them, or if you try to attack some of these rollers with too much gusto and you burn those matches, as we've been talking about a lot today. So keep it steady. Again, cadence in that mid 80 RPM range. Good form, knees in your top tube, upper body's nice and relaxed. You can see we're climbing a little bit here, so if you want to go to a slightly harder gear inch, feel free. Cadence might drop just a little bit, which is okay as well. You guys are doing a great job. If you're at this stage in the workout, you've done a great job and you're almost finished. You can reward yourself later on with a nice chocolate chip cookie. Or how about a bowl of chocolate ice cream? Or better yet, both. Chocolate ice cream and a chocolate chip cookie. But first you have to have pizza with pepperonis. And wash it all down with a beer. Alright, that's enough of that. Back to our ride. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Now that I'm hungry, and I'm sure you are too, but you can't eat anything until you're finished the ride, you're stuck with your sports drink and your sports nutrition products for the moment. Most people will burn somewhere between 500 and 700 calories in an hour of moderate intensity riding, depending on the athlete's body weight and, of course, metabolism. So you figure this ride will be over 3 hours, which means that most of you will burn probably between 1,500 and, say, 2,100 calories during this ride. So, you can do the math and calculate your caloric needs for the day. And if your goal is to lose weight, you can reduce your calorie intake during the day. And one rule of thumb is reduce your calorie intake by, say, 500 calories a day, go in a 500 calorie deficit over the course of a week, given the fact there are 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat, you could potentially lose a pound of fat per week by reducing your calorie intake and going into a 500 calorie deficit each day. And certainly a 2,000 calorie burning ride helps the weight loss goal if that is one of your goals. Now, if you're near race weight or you don't want to lose weight, that means you need to be sure to consume roughly what you've expended in this workout, plus whatever your basal metabolic rate is from your other normal daily activities. So it's all about the equation and what your goals are. We're going pretty fast right now. You can see we're going fast downhill, so let's go to your big chainring on the front and a slightly easier gear wrench on the back, maybe your 17 or even 19. And let's just get the cadence up. Right now, you can see the athletes are just soft pedaling a little bit, but let's get the cadence up and let's roll down this hill pretty quickly with a high cadence. Maybe keep it above 90 RPMs. Good job. Good job. I know you're thinking about pizza, beer, chocolate ice cream, and chocolate chip cookies now, but let's not let our minds wander. Let's stay in the moment, get through this workout first. So we're rolling downhill pretty quickly here. Keep that cadence up, around 90 RPMs. Maintain that steady state power output, steady state effort, 75-80%. Looks like the winds might have died down a little bit. Don't see the trees blowing quite as much. Hang in there with me. Don't get bored of me yet. I know you might be like, gosh, I'm so sick of hearing this guy's voice. I'm sure you are. I'm sick of hearing my own voice, in fact. But we're almost done the workout, so I think you can hang with it for another 15 to 20 minutes. And then tomorrow you can pop in a recovery spin intervals workout and listen to me again. And the next day, and the next day. Okay, we're going downhill, so let's keep that cadence up. 90 RPMs or so. Come on now. Keep that cadence up. See the road up ahead, heading downhill a little bit more. And then it's going to kick up a little bit. So we're going to be shifting to a slightly harder gear inch here in a little bit. Here's where you could use your momentum, crank it down this hill, build some speed so you carry yourself up this hill a little bit faster. Let's see what we do here. So we're going uphill a little bit. So now let's go to the big chain ring, which is probably where you are, and go down to your 15 or maybe even your 13. You can see I'm out of the saddle, stretching my legs out a little bit at the front. So if you want to stand up, go ahead, stand up. Stretch the legs out, put bigger gear inch, but try to keep that cadence in that 80 RPM range, maybe around 80. There you go. See, we're climbing a little bit here. Still climbing. Keep it steady. Use that whole pedal stroke. Push down and pull up. Nice. Big chain ring 13. Bring that resistance knob. Take it up to about a 4. Now. Still climbing, steady grade. Try to keep that cadence up there. Don't get bogged down. Again, I don't want to see you using such a big gear inch you can't turn over those pedals. That's not the way to go about it. That's the way to destroy yourself for the run, not have anything left. And do the shuffle. You don't want to do the shuffle on the run. Okay, let's go to your big chain ring 15 again. Looks like it's leveling out a little bit. keep it nice and steady. Watch out for that truck. The truck seems to be going pretty fast there. And we're rolling along. Big chain ring 15. Strong group of riders. They did a great job for this ride. We're going downhill again, so if you'd like to take it up to a slightly easier gear, go ahead, get that cadence up. You can see right up ahead we have another one of these little rollers. So let's use some momentum. Looks pretty long though, so we might not be able to use our momentum to carry us over, but we can certainly use it to bring us up the hill as we pedal along. And now you're going to go to a slightly harder gear, big chain ring 15, maybe down to your 13 as we start climbing this little grade. And if you have to, stand up a little bit, stretch your legs out. But again, remember, you're going to be more efficient if you can stay seated. So climbing the slight hill, working our way towards the top. Upper body's nice and relaxed. Let the legs do the work. Nice job, nice job. We're getting close to the end of this workout, ladies and gentlemen. And that is cause for celebration. Just as a reminder, you can certainly go back to where we started this loop and do the loop again as a way to experience the loop twice in the virtual world, which is what you'll need to do out there on race day if you're doing the race. Keep it steady. Big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Resistance on your spinner bike at around a 3 on that scale from 1 to 5. And you're just steady here. Cadence in that mid 80 RPM range. You know, a lot of steady, moderate efforts today in this aerobic endurance workout. That's the whole idea. We try to simulate what you're experiencing out there on the course itself as much as possible, but let's just get a great aerobic endurance workout in today. You can see the road up ahead kind of kicks up just a little bit. So if you want to go to a slightly harder gear, go ahead and shift or increase your resistance ever so slightly and get yourself up over this hill. You can see the wind starting to kick up again. I don't know if you noticed that. The trees are blowing a little bit more. So again, as I mentioned before, in several different training camps we've done, we've experienced a pretty stiff headwind heading back into Louisville. And that could happen on race day too. So just be ready for that. Nothing you can do about it, but just be ready for it. Some more rollers up ahead. Been pretty lucky, not a whole lot of traffic on this road. I say that and there's a car that goes by. Oh well. But we're just rolling along. A little bit of a grade coming up again. A little bit of a climb. One of those short rollers. Go to a slightly harder gear inch if you'd like, and to simulate it, and stand up if you want to stretch it out. Good job. Good job. Keep that cadence up. Keep that cadence up. riding along. Still big chain ring on the front, 15 on the back. Keep that cadence up in that 80 RPM range, 80 to 90 RPM range. Down your aero bars, down on your drops. Get low, get aero. Make sure you drink. We're almost done the workout, but make sure you're taking some fluids. And certainly when you're done the workout, because you will have been on the bike for a long time with a good, steady state aerobic endurance ride, post-workout nutrition is key and critical. So make sure that you take in some carbohydrate with a little bit of protein, and you start hydrating immediately so that you can train again tomorrow and have a good quality workout tomorrow. As I mentioned before, I recommend that tomorrow be some form of recovery ride. Doesn't have to be a high intensity workout, maybe a lower intensity aerobic workout. That would be a good idea, or perhaps even a run, but something, of course, that is not an intense workout. Ooh, wow, that was close. But do a ride that enables you to really bounce back, maybe to spin your legs out for a bit. In many cases, a good workout strategy would be to do this longer aerobic endurance ride, and then the follow-up day, or the following day, follow up with an aerobic run or an aerobic endurance run where you're running for roughly, I would say 90 minutes, depending on where you are in your fitness or your training progression. But 90 minutes or perhaps more, and building that running aerobic endurance fitness. That would be a great weekend combo. So Saturday, this ride, followed by Sunday, long run. And then Monday, depending on how you feel, might be an off day, or it might be a long swim. So there's a lot of different ways to develop a training plan around this kind of ride. But again, this ride should be done, or one like it, once a week to start building that aerobic endurance and that particular energy system, especially if you're preparing for these long distance events. The value in this workout, of course, is you also get to preview the course. So if you're doing this race, you get a chance to see it in the virtual world, what it looks like. But you're still in your big chain ring on the front, you're 15 or so on the back, maintaining this nice steady pace. You can see the road up ahead. Once again, we're going downhill, and then it'll climb back up. Just keep it nice and steady. As I've said before, you don't want to be a hero in any of these rides. Just keep it steady. Stay disciplined. Don't let your ego get in the way either. If somebody passes you on the bike, let them go, because you're not racing their race, you're racing your race. It's an easy concept, but you don't know how many people don't embrace it. Back to the riders. We're climbing a little bit here, so let's go back to a slightly harder gear inch so as we simulate this climb. So maybe you're in your big chain ring on the front, 13 on the back. Resistance on about a 3 or maybe even a 4. Creating a few dangerous situations here with the traffic. Keep it steady, keep it steady. We're almost done. Again, look at that wind kicking up on the right side there. Look at all the weeds blowing around. You guys have done a great job with this workout. I'm proud of you if you've gotten to this point. Nice job. Big chain ring 15. Looks like we're climbing again as we get to the end of our ride. Really nice job. Make sure you take another drink. Get yourself ready to have some good post-workout nutrition. Feel good about yourself because you did this strong aerobic endurance ride, got the hours in, which is really important. Putting time in the legs, time in the saddle. Gotta do it. Gotta do it if you want to be good at this stuff. And I hope to see you at the races. Hear how you're doing out there. Send me an email. Let me know how things are going. Troy@coachtroy.com or Troy@spinnervals.com. Let me know how these workouts are going for you, or if you have any suggestions or ideas how we can make them better. That would be great. I'd love to hear it. Nice job, everyone.
All right, great job. So we did one loop, and now you can go back and do the whole loop again. After you've done that entire loop, you're gonna head back, was it 42, Dale?
Highway 42.
Highway 42, right back into town. And normally you get a pretty stiff headwind heading back in.
22 miles.
Yeah, 22 miles back in. Anyway, it's been a fantastic day here in Louisville. I want to thank our riders, Carrie, Courtney, and Dale Benedict at the training studio. It's been a great ride. I hope this gave you a good preview of the course as well as a great endurance aerobic workout. Until we train together next time, train safe and train smart.